"Sorry, sir, we don't serve people like you." The voice cut through the noise of clinking cups and low conversations, sharp enough for the entire cafe to go silent. Gerald, 72, paused mid-step, his hand still resting on the back of a worn, wooden chair. The Navy veteran's coat, faded but neatly pressed, hung off his stooped shoulders. His cap, decorated with insignias, sat squarely over a crown of silver hair. The patches on his sleeves told stories of oceans crossed and friends buried. A few heads turned. Some stared, others smirked. But 20 minutes later, when 5 men in full ceremonial military attire walked in and stood quietly beside him, everything changed. Conversation stopped mid-word. The air, moments ago filled with laughter and morning rush energy, froze. Gerald had served in the Navy for 20 years, 2 of them in the South China Sea during the height of the Cold War. His younger cousin had died in the line of duty. Since retirement, he lived quietly in a modest home on the outskirts of town. His days were simple: morning walks, a worn photo album, a trip to his favorite café for a cup of black coffee and a moment of stillness. This café, where sunlight filtered through the windows just right, had always felt like a soft landing, until today. That morning, he wore his old Navy peacoat, not for fashion or show, but because the routine mattered. The discipline mattered. His boots were shined out of habit, his back slightly hunched from time, not weakness. As he held the door open for a young woman juggling a stroller and diaper bag, she gave him a quick thanks, but tugged her toddler along when the child pointed to the ribbons on his chest. Gerald offered a quiet nod and stepped inside. The cafe buzzed with activity. Laptops clicked. Phones glowed. The smell of espresso and toasted bagels floated in the air. Gerald stepped into line, unbothered by the glances he caught. A pair of college students whispered, "Must be homeless," one said, not bothering to hide it. The other laughed. Everywhere these days. When he reached the counter, the cashier, barely old enough to rent a car, looked him over, expression flat. "We don't serve folks like you," she repeated louder. Gerald blinked, unsure if he'd heard her right. "People like me?" "Yeah," she said, shrugging as if it were obvious. "Vets, drifters, guys who sit around too long. Look, there's a place a few blocks down where you can warm up, behind." "Him," someone muttered, "probably wants a discount for that hat." A chuckle followed. Another voice added, "Man, this country's full of these guys." Gerald straightened, instincts from decades ago kicking in. "I wore this uniform for this country. I lost family for that flag." A man in business casual stepped forward, clearly the manager. Gelled hair, pristine sneakers. "Sir, we run a business here, not a museum. You're disturbing customers. I need you to leave." No one objected. No one stepped in. "No, thank you for your service." Just silence. Gerald backed away slowly, every motion controlled, even as his hands started to shake, something that hadn't happened even in combat zones. Behind him, chatter resumed like nothing had happened. He took a seat outside on a cold steel bench, just out of the sun's reach, his breath visible in the chill air. He didn't cry. He hadn't since his cousin's funeral in 1978. But the weight in his chest was unmistakable. He looked down at his boots reflected in a puddle, wondering when exactly respect had turned into ridicule. Through the cafe window, a child noticed him and waved. The mother, spotting her son's hand mid-air, quickly pulled him back and lowered the blinds, as if Gerald posed a threat. 2 teens walked past, earbuds in, laughing. "Probably just playing dress-up," one said. "My uncle says half of them fake it for attention." Gerald clenched his jaw. His hand found its way to a medal tucked inside his coat, the one awarded after a rescue mission off the coast of Beirut. 8 men hadn't made it. He never wore the medal in public, but he kept it close. Not for pride, for memory. What Gerald didn't realize was that someone inside had captured the entire incident. A 19-year-old community college student, sitting quietly in the corner, had started recording the moment the cashier raised her voice. The caption on the video, "They turned away a real veteran. Charleston Cafe, Main and 3rd. This isn't okay." Within minutes, the video found its way into private military Facebook groups and veterans forums. Dozens of comments followed. "Drop the pin. No one treats a sailor like that on my watch. Rolling out now. Where's this place?" Gerald remained seated, staring at the people passing by. Some gave him quick glances. A few offered awkward smiles, unsure what to do. He considered going home. The small house with silent photo frames and the U.S. flag folded neatly in its display case. He wouldn't have to sit out here feeling like a ghost in a country he once defended, but he stayed. 20 minutes later, the first car pulled up, then another, then 2 more. No screeching tires, no horns, just quiet arrivals. Men and women stepped out, some in crisp uniform, others in civilian clothes, but unmistakably military by posture alone. Gerald noticed, barely. He was still staring at the cafe's reflection in the window when the bell above the entrance jingled. 6 sharp rings. 6 service members walked in, shoulders squared, expressions unreadable. "Excuse me," the lead officer said to the barista, placing both palms on the counter. "We're here with Petty Officer Gerald Hughes. We'll be having coffee. All of us." The room went still. Coffee cups froze midway to lips. Every phone lowered. Every conversation cut off as if someone had hit pause. The cashier looked stunned, her confidence evaporating as 6 uniformed figures stood quietly at the front of the line. Their presence wasn't loud. It was absolute. The kind of silence earned through experience, not demanded. The manager stepped out from the back, his voice tentative now. "Is this some kind of flash mob?" A grizzled colonel with salt and pepper hair stepped forward. "No, sir. This is what respect looks like. Something your place was clearly lacking this morning." The teenage barista swallowed hard, suddenly fascinated by the floor tiles. "I didn't realize he was, real. We get people dressed up sometimes." "You didn't care enough to ask," replied the youngest of the group, barely 30, a Marine with a long scar that split his cheek. "You judged his coat, not the man. Each of those ribbons was earned. Some came at a cost you'll never understand." Outside, Gerald slowly stood. He wasn't sure what he'd just witnessed. His mind struggled to process it. Then the cafe door opened and a female officer stepped outside, her polished shoes clicking softly on the sidewalk. Her rank gleamed on her shoulders as she saluted with crisp precision. "Petty Officer Hughes," she said, her voice steady and proud. "Your seat is ready." He blinked, unsure if this was real or some strange dream pulled from old memories. But when he stepped forward, the soldiers formed a line inside. Each saluted as he walked past, their eyes holding his with silent respect. His spine straightened automatically. Decades melted away. For a moment he was back in uniform, back in a world where honor meant something. Customers stood. A few removed their hats. Others lowered their phones, their eyes wide with emotion. The same teenager who had recorded the earlier humiliation sat nearby, his phone forgotten in his lap, eyes misty. Gerald reached the counter. His voice wavered. I thought people didn't see us anymore." The colonel stepped forward and gently placed a hand on his shoulder. "We never stopped seeing you, and we don't leave our own behind. Not back then, not now." One of the veterans paid for every order in the building. Another pulled a frame from a canvas bag and hung it on the cafe's main wall, just beside the barista station. It read, "Reserved for Petty Officer Gerald Hughes and all who've served." The manager stumbled forward, the arrogance gone. "Sir, we were wrong. Deeply. You won't pay here again. Ever." Gerald met his eyes, calm but firm. "It's not about the coffee. You understand that now, don't you?" Outside, local news vans began arriving. The video had already crossed 1 million views overnight. People flooded the cafe's page with comments, many calling for accountability, some for boycotts, others demanding staff be fired. The cafe's corporate office released a statement apologizing. The manager stepped down the next morning. New training was promised, mandatory military sensitivity sessions for all frontline staff. But none of that mattered to Gerald. He didn't want revenge. When a local reporter caught up with him during the installation of a new veterans table, he kept it simple. "All I ask is that the next person who walks in wearing service scars, on the outside or the inside, doesn't need a crowd behind them to be treated like a human being." The colonel, standing beside him, nodded. "That's why we came. For all of us. For all of them." That same week, the company's CEO flew in personally. With the cameras rolling, he sat with Gerald and announced a new national policy. Every location would now include a reserved table for veterans, marked, permanent, always honored. "It should never take a viral video to remind us who built this country," he said, turning to Gerald. "We failed. I'm here to say that to your face." And for the first time in decades, Gerald opened up. He spoke of long-ago deployments, old friendships, lost shipmates, the kind of stories he hadn't shared in years, and he didn't feel like a relic. He felt remembered. A week later, the news section officially opened. The veterans table stood near the front window, with a small American flag and a plaque that read, "For those who served. Your coffee is ready." Now Gerald comes every Thursday morning. Same table, same order, but never alone. Other vets show up too, some young, some old. They share stories over coffee, sometimes about war, sometimes about fishing. Students sit nearby, notebooks open, listening quietly. No lectures, just memories. Strangers stop by and thank him, some with words, some with tears. The young barista? She now volunteers at the local VA center every weekend. She knows the names of regulars. She listens more than she speaks. Next to the flag on the cafe wall hangs a photograph of Gerald's old Navy unit. Beneath it, a quote. "Service doesn't end when the uniform comes off. Neither should the respect." The cafe became something else. Not just a place for coffee, but a place of recognition. Within months, other locations followed, then other businesses. Veterans' tables popped up in diners across the country. Not out of pity, but out of acknowledgement. Gerald never asked to be a symbol. He just wanted peace. Peace in knowing that his life, his sacrifice, hadn't been forgotten. And now, when he walks down Main Street in his old coat and cap, people nod. Kids ask questions, and he answers, keeping alive the stories of those who never made it back to share their own.